On average, tech startup lasts from 2 to 5 years. I am proud to say that in the digital pathology space, they actually last longer. And today I have a guest from Indica Labs. Indica Labs has been in the space for over a decade, so let's welcome her.
Learn about the newest digital pathology trends in science and industry, meet the most interesting people in the niche, and gain insights relevant to your own projects. Here is where pathology meets computer science. You are listening to the Digital Pathology Podcast with your host, Dr. Alexandra Zhurov.
Welcome, Digital Pathology Trailblazers. Today, my guest is Kate Lillard. She is the Chief Scientific Officer at Indica Labs. And Kate, this podcast is so overdue. We were supposed to do it when Indica was 10, and now Indica is already 12. But here we are meeting, and I want to learn what happened in those 12 years in Indica Labs. But before we dive into that, tell me about you, Kate. Let's start with you.
Okay. Thank you, Alex. Actually, it's really a pleasure to be here today and to be able to talk to you. I think, as you said, we've been trying to make this happen for some time now. So I'm like super excited to be here. So a bit about me. My actual background is really in cancer research. So I did a doctorate in molecular genetics and biochemistry, and that was at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center in the early 2000s. Went on to do a postdoc at UT Southwestern in Dallas. I think my plan was 100% that I was going to stay on the sort of academic path at that point.
Didn't happen, did it?
Yeah. So about, I guess, 4 years.
You're employee number 3, so you've been there forever for all those 12 years, right?
Yeah, I was about 4 years into my postdoc, and my advisor sort of unexpectedly passed away, unfortunately. So ultimately, I decided rather than starting over again on a new postdoc, it was a good time to change track. And I actually joined Aperio at that time. And it was in 2008. And that's really
digital
how
pathology pioneers.
Yeah, I really landed in digital pathology at that point. I didn't have any experience in digital pathology prior to that. I had lots of experience in microscopy and imaging. I was really excited about the space, but not digital pathology. So it was relatively, I think, early days in the field. And quite an exciting time, really, to be in it. And as you said, yeah, Aperio was really a leader in the space. So, and altogether, a really great company to work for.
So you were there, and then you moved to Indica Lab. How did that happen? What was your career path to the place where you are now, the Chief Scientific Officer?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I think it was really sort of a natural transition, actually. So the CEO of Indica Lab back then, and still is, Stephen Hashigan, and myself, we were both working at Aperio at really the same time and overlapping. So he was on the development side and I was more on the applications and product management side, but we were both remote employees. I was based in the UK and he was based in New Mexico. So we would regularly come into the office in Vista, California at the same time. So we spent quite a bit of time.
You from the UK and he from New Mexico.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we kind of
that's a large commute.
Yeah, definitely. Once a month, once a quarter, quite often. But actually one day, probably late 2010, maybe early 2011, he told me about his plans to sort of spin off this company, Indica Labs, and it was really a spin out of Aperio because he was going to take the Aperio SDK and develop research-focused algorithms.
What's an
that
SDK?
Could be deployed. Yeah, the SDK, software development kit. To develop algorithms that could be deployed in the ImageScope viewer. So I was actually really excited about his plans, and because the sort of pharma customer, research customers were really my own bread and butter customer at Aperio. So it gave me potentially more products to sell in the near term, but I really, really wanted to work with him on this sort of new venture because I knew there was a lot of need out there. So I basically told him at that point that I was going to join him as soon as he has the company established and really needed to commercially launch products. So that actually happened in 2012. So just about a year after him establishing Indica Labs as a company. And when I joined,
that's fast for a startup.
Yeah, it was
he
fast.
Already was able to have people join him.
Yeah, and I was
struggle for longer than a year.
I was employee number 3. So Vlado Otrov was actually employee number 2, and he was sort of the first developer and still in Indica Lab as well. But so I joined as Chief Scientific Officer, and obviously as CSO, I was then and still am involved in a lot of sort of the strategic sort of decision making about what we're doing in the company scientifically. But I'm also actually in charge of a sales and marketing team, and I manage an AI diagnostics team. Yeah, so I do a lot of different things, and I think a lot of people find that really strange that a CSO would sort of manage the sales and marketing side, but actually everybody that we employ in sales to do the sales or to write our marketing content, they're all scientists themselves. We don't actually have sort of a traditional sales team, at least not on the research side of the business. We try to employ bench level scientists, a lot of our previous sort of customers of ours. And we use sort of a consultative approach to try to figure out what the customers are trying to do scientifically, what data do they need to generate, and then we try to design a solution that works for them. So it's a little bit different, I think, than a lot of other companies in the space. And maybe if you look at it from that perspective, that everybody who's in the sort of sales and marketing team is a scientist, it might not be as strange that they're managed by the chief scientific officer. But that is my job in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. So the 3 original employees are still there at Indica.
Yep.
Congratulations.
So yeah, Stephen, Vlado, and myself, we were all still there.
Mm-hmm. That says a lot about the company. And just to comment on this is an interesting and I think very fit for purpose approach for the scientific environment, the scientific digital pathology environment, image analysis environment, to have people that do sales have an in-depth knowledge of what this product is being used for. That's kind of...
There's not sort of somebody in between on the sort of sales side.
And you can have direct communications. I don't know how to, there is no unnecessary links in this chain. And I don't want to say that sales is unnecessary, but often there need to be a translator. There's no need for an interpreter. Let's go that way. That's a fair way to put it.
Exactly. The person that's actually putting the quote together knows the customer's need at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. So about the company, about Indica Labs, tell me the nuts and bolts. Where are you located and why there? And where are you located and why not where the whole main company office is? And a little bit of this backstory about that.
Yeah, sure. So I actually, as I mentioned before, I live in the UK. I actually have lived in the UK prior to joining Indica Labs. I moved here when I was working for Aperio. So that's sort of historical, I guess. But Indica Labs itself is headquartered in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So initially we were a little bit further north in Corrales, New Mexico. And by the way, Stephen Hashigan, the CEO, is from New Mexico. So that's the main reason we were based here to begin with. But we moved from Corrales, New Mexico into the sort of Albuquerque city proper, into sort of shiny new headquarters in 2019, which was interesting timing.
Oh, yes, it was.
We were definitely sort of bursting at the seams at our old office, and we moved into this amazing, new headquarters. And then, we're almost immediately bursting at the seams again. But then, COVID happened. So that kind of changed everything in terms of who was actually based in the office
space.
It definitely freed up some office space. But I think Albuquerque, again, in Stephen's sort of hometown, but it's also a little bit underappreciated as really a tech hub, that it's actually a really great place for a software company like ours to be based, because there's a few local universities that really have good, solid computer programming courses. There's also 2 government labs. So San Diaz and Los Alamos are just in the immediate area. So they have a lot of focus on computer programming and AI as well. And not everybody wants to work in the defense sector. So we actually get quite a few people moving over to Indica on the development side for that reason.
Oh, great. So how many are you now? How many people work for the company at the moment?
Yeah, so as of this morning, we were 111 people. I have to keep looking because it does change quite frequently. Yeah, so 111 people. And I think more than half of those, about 60% or so, are actually based in the headquarters, and the rest, most of those are sort of the engineering folks and product development. And then we have quite a big field staff team that are customer facing, like the application scientists, and also technical support for IT. And we're based everywhere, pretty big team in the UK, as you probably imagine, me being based here, but also in Europe. We've got direct sales support in China and Japan, and also, of course, many in the US and Canada as well.
Pretty international. So
Yeah.
are you guys still growing? Are you expecting Indica to be 211 people next year, or is this the perfect size, or it depends what the business world will bring?
It depends on what the business world will bring, but we're definitely still recruiting. Will we be 200 employees next year? Probably not. We'll definitely still
Oh,
grow.
okay. So do you have open positions at the moment?
We do have open positions at the moment, mainly in the sort of development side. Obviously, always looking for new engineers within the company, people to come in, particularly on the AI side as well.
I can link to your open positions in the show notes, so maybe
Right.
you will find some good people for Indica after this
Ah.
podcast. But let's talk about your product.
Right.
So I know Halo, but Halo is not just one Halo. It's a lot
Yeah.
of different parts of Halo. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Is it how is your product built, and also how can it be used, and how is it sold?
Sure. So we don't just have sort of software products. We also have services. So I definitely want to mention that. But
Okay.
everything we do really is focused on, the digital pathology space. And as you mentioned, Halo, that's probably the software platform most people are familiar with from Indica Labs, and as well as Halo AI, which is essentially the AI component of Halo. So Halo is a sort of modular platform. So you said it's many different parts. And so the modules are basically algorithms that are integrated within the Halo interface. And the modules give you sort of all the parameters to do a specific type of analysis. So it could be a pretty generalized module like multiplex IHC, which is for looking at quantification of biomarker expression in bright field slides, or high-plex FL for looking at multiplex fluorescence biomarker expression, or Isher-Fish quantification. We also have really specific modules for different tissue or cell types. So we're looking at microglial activation, or axons, or counting or measuring muscle fibers. So the idea is really that labs can pick and choose what algorithms make sense for them, what modules make sense for them based on the types of image analysis they're doing. And then they can scale according to those needs, but also according to their budget. So if they, don't need something right now, they can always come back and add additional modules later. So that's generally how it's licensed. So we can add a certain number of modules. You can also have multiple seats of Halo and Halo AI as well. But we try not to sort of force people to have everything that if they don't need it.
So those modules are algorithms that you can kind of buy out of the box and deploy them. What do you do if you need to tweak them?
Right. So all algorithms are tweakable. So they have each of the different parameters, let's say like the intensity threshold, they're all modifiable. You can change how the nuclei are segmented, how the membranes are segmented, how the cells are phenotyped. There's lots of different options, and those are all sort of built into the modules, the ability to tweak and optimize the individual settings.
So you have the algorithm that does most of the job already there. You don't have to build it from scratch, but you can adjust it to your data sets.
That's right.
Perfect.
Exactly. So we also have image management. So that's like, for the research space, that's Halo Link. And on the anatomic pathology side, we have a case and image management platform called Halo AP. That's really our newest product at Indica in terms of an actual platform. We also have CE marked Halo Prostate AI algorithm for prostate cancer detection and grading. And then our Halo AP platform also has APIs for integrating other third-party algorithms, like DeepDX is the most recent one that we have integrated with. So that's from Deep Bio. I think that that's sort of it on the product side in terms of what we offer currently.
That is a lot of components. How did you come up with this? What was the path to the creation of Halo? Like, how did it grow? What was the core thing, and why did you go in the directions that you went?
Right. So actually, as I mentioned earlier, so Stephen, who founded Indica, was building initially algorithms for the Apereo image scope viewer. So this is exactly how we got started in terms of Indica Labs as a business.
By the way, image scope viewer, this video, I made a video once on YouTube, how to annotate an image scope. This is one of my top videos after 2 or 3 years into my YouTube channel. So definitely still something in use.
Yeah, it's still out there and being used, definitely. So yeah, we were integrating algorithms into ImageScope. And at the same time, actually, ironically, we had integrated with Leica's slide path viewer. So when Aperio was sort of acquired by Leica, that was a really quite an easy transition in terms of what we were developing at Indica. So, but anyway, ImageScope, as you said, great for viewing, great for annotations, but it actually didn't have really all the functionality that our research customers really needed for image analysis. Things like being able to store like cell by cell data, individual cell information, individual object information, the spatial information about all the objects. So that wasn't supported. There was also only one option for tissue classification with the ImageScope platform. And I think we really wanted to be able to explore other options, more advanced algorithms for classification, random forest, deep learning, things like that. So I think all of this really led us to create Halo as a new interface for running the algorithms that we've previously developed for the ImageScope and slide path viewers. So Halo really became our main GUI. That was around sort of 2013-ish, end of 2013 when Halo was released. After that, it took a few years and we developed Halo Link. And I think it was a pretty natural step for us to develop image management because we had a lot of customers that needed a way to sort of store and view and share the data they were collecting in Halo. Although these days, Halo Link is definitely more of it can actually be run completely separately from Halo, and it integrates other third-party image analysis and AI. So it's really more of a standalone IMS, but it was a very natural progression for us to add image management to our image analysis and AI capabilities. And then the most recent addition, as I said, was Halo AT. And that was really back in 2016. We were approached by a customer who was using Halo and was really asking us to build a clinical viewer they could use to run their companion and prognostic algorithms. And ultimately, this was the impetus for us being able to create Halo AT. I think that's probably pretty unique in a space that the image management system was created really with image analysis and AI at the heart, right, of it. And the question for us at the time was, how do we make this easy for our pharma customers, our diagnostic lab customers to be able to build algorithms in Halo and Halo AI, and then be able to transition those into more of a clinical lab. So Halo AT obviously has all those sort of cool AI technology, the ability to integrate all this technology, but it can also do sort of the routine workflows, primary diagnosis, secondary consult, tumor boards, synoptic reports, all of that kind of stuff. So
you have like a full ecosystem, right?
Yeah, full ecosystem. I think that, again, really unique in the space that we have this sort of full bench to bedside from the discovery phase using Halo and Halo AI to developing companion biomarker algorithms and then being able to sort of share that information using Halo Link during a research phase and then transition that into more of a clinical environment down the road. So pretty unique.
One very important question I need to ask about this product.
Yeah.
Why is it called Halo? Like, hello.
A lot of people ask that.
One time I saw a pin. Actually, recently I was at the STP conference and I met your team at the booth. And you guys have those pins with like funny little sayings. And one of them was like, you say Halo or hello and I say goodbye or something like that.
Yes.
So how did you come up with this name?
Lots of funny little things. And so Halo, actually, Stephen came up with that name. And I think it was really, as he described it, was because in the image analysis markups for the cells, there was like a ring around the cell and it looked like a halo around the cell. And that's initially where it came from, not to be confused with the video game. He wasn't a gamer or anything.
I don't even know about the video games, so I am totally not confusing. So you mentioned you guys also do services. What kind of services do you offer?
Yeah, and I'm glad you circled back to that because it's really a growing focus of the company. And we actually have a few different services teams. Probably the oldest one, the one that's been around the longest, is our pharma services team. And they're basically providing outsourced image analysis services to pharma customers, CROs that might not have their own image analysis capabilities, that kind of thing. So this team is actually probably our biggest internal. It's like having a really big internal customer for all of our products that are using Halo and Halo AI for all their image analysis. They're sharing the results through Halo Link. So we know if like the pharma services team isn't very happy about something in the product, then our customers are probably feeling that too.
So you have it like immediately tested at scale in-house. That's super handy.
Exactly. There definitely are beta customers on things that are sort of coming out, they're so intimately familiar with the product as well, which is great. So that's one service. We also have our AI diagnostics team. I mentioned Halo Prostate AI, which is one of our clinical algorithms that was developed from the AI diagnostics team along with collaborators. They're also working on PD-L1, breast IHC, different cancer detection algorithms. And they were initially called AI collaborations because they're collaborating with a lot of academics and pharma to really around the world to collect data and to try to build algorithms that are as generalizable as possible on different scanners and, through different labs. As we all know, things can look very different from one lab to the next, even if they're using the same reagents and scanners even. So they're trying to make everything very generalizable, doing a lot of validation and ultimately regulatory clearances. And they also work with the pharma as well to develop AI-based companion diagnostic algorithms to pair up with new therapeutics, for example. So that's a major focus for us as well. And then last but not least, before I forget to mention our professional services team, they are actually providing managed hosting services to customers that are using our Halo platforms on Amazon Web Services. So they help recommend.
So this is separate from pharma services.
It's separate from pharma services because
pharma services does image analysis, and they do more like technical support or
IT. Yeah, they're all about IT.
Okay.
Setting up the AWS infrastructure architecture that is, really most optimized and performant for running all of our Halo platforms. And they offer sort of a managed service for looking after that deployment. So I think this is really great for customers who don't have IT internally, or maybe they just want to make sure they have the most performance set up to actually run our platforms. But that's actually one of the newest parts of our services, but again, growing really rapidly as well.
When did you start this service?
Actually, only a few months ago. Officially launched only a few months ago, but we already have a few customers. So really nice to see it grow.
So let's talk about your customers. Who are your customers? Who is using Halo?
Right. So I mentioned earlier that our original sort of image scope modules and then subsequently the Halo and Halo AI were really designed for research focused, like life science based customers. So historically, that means that pharma is made up of probably the majority of our customers, followed by other life sciences type customers like academic medical centers, government labs, and like CROs. So those are our sort of major life science customers. But I think with the addition of Halo AP and ultimately our sort of AI diagnostics products, we've really rapidly expanded actually into the clinical space. We've secured some really large clinical customers in the UK, in the US, some in mainland Europe, and we're expanding now to other parts of the world. So I think it's really a very exciting time for us as we sort of expand our capabilities on the clinical side and regulatory clearances. And it's a little bit like being a startup again, 12 years later, but this time sort of more focused on the clinical space.
So 12 years in operations, a lot has happened in the image analysis space, and your 12, right? Because your first year was 2012. This was actually the year when deep learning came to the image analysis scene. And this was when AlexNet, CNN, convolutional neural network, outperformed all the other image analysis solutions to classify dogs and cats and other natural images. Were you aware of that at Indica at that time?
We might have been aware of it within Indica, but I have to be honest about myself. I wasn't aware of AlexNet at that point. And I think my main experience
probably was.
Vlado would have been. Yes, exactly. Vlado would have been. But my main experience with artificial intelligence in digital pathology was Genie, which was the sort of machine learning, not deep learning, tissue classifier that was being offered by Aperio at the time. And we actually had integrated the random forest algorithm for tissue classification into Halo. But both of these were machine learning. They're not deep learning. So this is in pretty early days. Actually, our random forest algorithm was integrated in 2013 when we first released Halo, but then it was a big improvement, but still there were a lot of limitations as to what these things could do. And I think if I you asked me, I would have classed myself as an AI skeptic at that point of time, at least in terms of what AI or deep learning could do, or at least for not deep learning, but what AI could do in digital pathology. I, hadn't experienced deep learning at that point.
Mm-hmm. So when did you incorporate AI or deep learning specifically into your software?
Yeah, right. So this came around 2017. So I think we were pretty early out of the gate in terms of integrating these things into a user-trained image analysis system. But I mean, this actually came down to Vlado, who really latched on to AI as an important trend in 2016. So I think he would have known about Alex certainly in 2012. But he participated in the Chameleon 17 challenge, which was basically to design a classifier to identify breast cancer, mets, and lymph nodes, and to grade them. And I think, admittedly, we were all really surprised when his entry came in the sort of top 3 at the time that the challenge actually closed. It's different now because they opened the challenge again. And of course, AI develops at, exponential speed. So there's a lot of other options now. But at the time, we were the top 3, and he made a presentation and participated in the initial publication. But I think this was really a major game changer.
Did you start believing in AI then? Or not yet?
I did. I definitely started to believe in AI at that point. We actually had at Indica Lab, I think, a particular tissue classification challenge that I at least personally used to judge, the value of new techniques that we were bringing in. And that was glomeruli detection in kidney. And I think when it came to that, our own sort of random forest tissue classifier was really truly random in terms of its performance.
I've experienced that as well. In other different softwares that would use random forest, it was random sometimes.
Yeah, it could definitely be random. But Vlado, showed me how he trained the VGG network that he used in the Chameleon 17 challenge, but he used this to identify glomeruli, and not only in H&E, which I would have been really happy about just seeing that being trained, but he could also train the exact same classifier to pick out glomeruli in all different types of stains. So TAS, ISH, IHC, silver, you name it, and the same classifier. So I was really, really blown away by that. And I think that's when I really understood how transformative this was going to be, the AI was going to be in the pathology space. And I was no longer a skeptic at that point.
So what can your AI module do? What are the capabilities? I know you guys have a special nucleus detection model that runs there with other algorithms, but what else can it do? Can you just do annotations and train it for anything? Or?
Yeah, you can add your own annotations and train like a tissue classifier. Actually, we have several different tissue classification networks that are integrated into Halo AI. VGG actually isn't one of them anymore because it's now so dated, even though it blew me away early on. True. We've got it's just again, exponential speed of development, really. But as you mentioned, we also have networks that segment cells. So to help identify nuclei and membranes. Membranes the newest, and I'm super excited about that. Constantly playing with the membrane segmenter, as well as algorithms for actually phenotyping the cells that are being segmented. So all of these things actually can be used standalone. So to classify different tissue classes and to quantify the amount of different tissue classes, to segment nuclei or cell or membranes. They can also be used in conjunction with all of our more traditional hard-coded algorithms. So for example, multiplex IHC can integrate
that's something unique, I think, or something that is not that yet emphasized or leveraged, because you guys have the classical computer vision approaches and computer vision algorithms that you have in those models and AI. How do they interrelate? How do they work together? And can you do everything with Halo AI, or is that not the best way? Because to me, from other software that I know, AI software, you basically don't have the other parts. You train everything from scratch. Maybe you have something pre-trained, and here we have a combination. How does that work?
Right. So the Halo AI component, obviously, you can train. We have sort of out of the box solutions for nuclear segmentation using AI, membrane segmentation. So we use algorithms we've trained ourselves. But you can use Halo AI to train if it's a different type of cell. It might just look a little bit different stains that weren't used in our training set, things like that. So there's the option for that. But basically, if you have a nuclear segmenter, a membrane segmenter, you can actually use those within the traditional algorithms as well. So again, if you go to multiplex IHC analysis, so you can use a specially trained AI nuclear segmenter to identify the nuclei and any membranes, really do just a much better job at identifying the cell compartments compared to sort of traditional image analysis. So that's kind of where they intersect. You can also use the tissue classifiers you built in Halo AI to analyze the different tissue classes. So analyze tumor separate from stroma or whatever. So that's sort of where they come together. I think the question, the second part of that was, do you sort of need both, or can you do everything in AI? You can do a lot of things in AI. You can, do tissue classification, quantify different tissue classes. You can segment cells. You can phenotype the cells according to, again, whether they're tumor cells or lymphocytes, things like that. But definitely from our perspective, at least, traditional image analysis modules are really still needed, not just technically, because, just to be honest, not every problem needs AI. If you're trying to quantify the intensity of a biomarker, actually traditional image analysis is, maybe works pretty well for that.
Decent job. It's okay.
Yeah, decent job. So there are times when you don't need it. There's also, to be, frank, in the world, GPU can sometimes be hard to get a hold of. So there's some labs that just because of supply chain issues or even affordability don't necessarily, have AI or want to be able to run AI. So I think as a company, at least, we try to be really perfectly, honest with our customers about when AI is going to be an asset for them and when it won't be. And we try to give them options at the end of the day. So most of our algorithms can be run without any AI component currently. So we're also, sort of actively researching ways that we can get our customers to be able to benefit from AI with more moderate sort of or less expensive hardware requirements. And, ultimately, I think that would be the ideal solution all around.
Yeah, I see this trend of modular work. So it can be like you can structure it either all AI-based AI models deployed within the results of other models, or like you guys are doing this, AI models deployed within the results of classical computer vision, or the other way around. And if you define your image analysis problem well and structure your image analysis solution in a logical way, you get better results than like trying to throw AI at the huge problem and expect it to solve everything and show you every pixel correctly. There is still some design work to have a good image analysis solution, which was the case, when I was starting in this space in 2016, and is still the case. There's no magic pill. Unfortunately, we did not invent that yet. But maybe in the next 10 years. So what do you think is going to happen in the next 10 years in digital pathology? It was actually a question I wanted to ask you when Indica turned 10. Then it was like matching. Then let's put it, what about the next 12 years?
Right. Yeah. So I'm actually really excited about the coming decade, because I think that my first decade in this industry, and more than a decade, actually, probably almost every presentation or poster that I would see at Pathology Visions or at the Digital Pathology and AI Congresses were really about adoption of digital pathology and how you adopt digital pathology. And maybe because of COVID or maybe because of all of these sort of AI innovation that's happening in the field, I feel like people are now starting to really talk about what they're doing with digital pathology rather than just talking about, how they adopt. And I think that's
how to get started.
Yeah, it's reassuring to me that, we're sort of moving to this new phase in the industry. I think it still feels like it's early days for deep learning. There's obviously a lot of excitement in the space, but I also feel a lot of skepticism and maybe even some resistance to using AI, at least, when it comes to sort of the clinic and in patient care. So I think over the next decade, we're going to continue to see all all of the sort of major hospitals and health systems going completely digital. We're definitely seeing that in the UK, and now, in parts of the US as well, but UK's had a lot of, major initiatives to get the NHS digitized. And I think that's going to sort of spill over into other countries, other health systems and hospitals. So, and I think that sort of digitization ultimately of pathology is going to, obviously exponentially increases just the amount of digital data that we have. And I think that will fuel that sort of AI revolution, the sort of next step in pathology. But I guess myself, I wouldn't sort of hedge my bet that that's going to happen in the next 5 years. We might be realistically saying 5 or even 10 years down the road when that becomes the sort of next phase of digital pathology.
It's funny, like you cannot really predict because some things happen so much in technology. Like recently I was in New York at the DP AI conference, which you guys in Europe have in London in December. And like several people said, oh, in 2010, I was talking at the stage and saying that everything everywhere is going to be digital pathology in 5 years, right? And here we are, like, 20 years, 10 years later, and it did not happen. But some things like happen so fast. I don't know, like I'm mind blown with the large language models. And so anyway, you cannot predict. Some things are going to be slower, some are going to be faster, but definitely exciting time. But before we wrap here up, I need to ask you what didn't go so well. Tell me about some failures that you had on the way to getting where you are right now.
Right. Okay. So I think this is a more difficult one. Everybody likes to talk about their successes.
Of this one.
Yeah, and I obviously have a lot of personal failures, but I'll talk about one specifically at Indica. So, right. So a few years ago, this is actually before Halo AI. That was probably about 2015-ish, something like that. We embarked on developing a platform called Strata. And Strata was really designed for our pharma customers who were running their image analysis algorithms that had all this sort of outputs from the image analysis. They also had all this patient data, and maybe they had outputs from other types of analysis they were performing. But anyway, they were trying to combine all this data together and for informatics, right, to use it to sort of predict treatment responses or prognosis. So we're trying to pick out what morphological features of the tissue in combination with sort of biomarker expression and maybe, these features of the patient, which ones you put together that you could ultimately maybe stratify. That's where the name came from. Customers that might respond versus non-responders for a particular treatment. So we knew this is what our sort of pharma customers were ultimately trying to achieve with their biomarker programs out there. And I think it felt like a really natural thing for us to develop since we were already generating all of this data ourselves. So I was super pumped to go out and talk to my customers about Strata and to sort of give a demo of the platform. And I think actually our customers were also really excited about it. But ultimately what we learned pretty quickly is that the customers that we were talking to of Halo weren't actually the ones that were doing the informatics, so the biostats. So they were basically, analyzing the tissues and then throwing the data over the fence to the informatics teams who were doing all the number crunching. And we tried to get ourselves in front of those teams to show Strata, but I think they were sort of much less interested in an easy to use platform.
Yeah, basically they can code anything they want and they don't need a tool for that. Exactly. And they don't really care about the images. Like the image analysis people, they do care. They want this to be good. But then once the data is extracted, I don't think the data people care that much where it came from.
Yeah, exactly.
They do care that it's accurate, right? But once it's accurate, they take it and work with it. So
exactly. So it was definitely a product we didn't design for our sort of customer target base. We thought we were, but we weren't. And I think probably the takeaway lesson for us there was to get in front of the customers very early and often to show them what we were developing and make sure it actually is what they would be using in the lab. We did that with Halo and all of our other platforms. That for some reason we waited quite a while to sort of get in front of customers and found out that we were in the wrong sort of target market there. But definitely easy to sort of accidentally be living in an echo chamber where you're excited about your own product without actually going out and showing it. But actually, a colleague of mine at Indica that was around at the same time as Strata, she actually sent me a little screenshot of a Strata PowerPoint slide that she'd found on SharePoint and sent it to me with a caption like "RIP Strata." So I think it was a heady heart for all of us when we had to retire Strata really early in terms of development. But I guess I still have a secret hope that it's going to be dragged out of retirement someday. So who knows?
I'm interested because the concept seems like so logical, because everybody is talking about let's change the silos in the drug development. Let's make people collaborate more, and obviously you need tools for that. I do not know how to develop those tools, but
watch the space,
for sure there's
Alex.
gonna be right. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Anything else that you would like to share? Anything that I forgot to ask you?
I can't think of anything, Alex. I think we've covered a lot of ground today in terms of the customers and products and history, and a lot of nostalgia in there. So it's been a pleasure anyway talking to you today about it.
I'm so happy that we met again. We were supposed to do it when Indica turned 10. I will definitely link to your open positions, and if at the time of publishing this podcast it's a different one, that's okay. People can go and check. And you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much for staying till the end. It means you are a real digital pathology trailblazer, and you might have some need for more in-depth courses about digital pathology, different aspects of digital pathology. So I have a gift for you. We recently launched a membership site, Digital Pathology Club, at the Digital Pathology Place, and I would love to offer you 1 week free trial with the access to all of our courses. So go ahead, check the link below and grab your free trial. And I talk to you in the next episode.